Fucking with Trey.
Get that paper, told that Glock, that's how we live. Yeah, my life's a gamble, I pray I don't get killed. They can't believe I got the guap, this shit for real. Can't accept the fact my brother gone, I wanna kill. Yeah, I can't go for that shit don't sit right. Instead of cabin to the old nigga, I know what you live like. Ain't worried about all just fuck these hoes and live life. I go on the drill, I'm smart enough, you gotta know how to kill.
Within Hiroshima, Japan, there stood an old orphanage filled with children who spent their days laughing and playing in the world without a care. To most, they were just ordinary kids, yet among them was a boy who was anything but ordinary. That boy was Yoichi Isagi. While others chased each other through the courtyard, Isagi would often be found inside, effortlessly solving equations meant for second-year junior high students. The adults marveled at his brilliance, applauding his talents, but his expression, it never changed. All of you adults, you bore me, he muttered. His eyes sharply cut through their shallow praise. You're too easily amused. The woman who ran the orphanage often warned potential adopters that every family that takes in Yoichi Isagi ends up bringing him back. She would then gesture towards the other children, insisting that they were better fits. And they were available. And as always, the couples would leave with someone else. Isagi didn't mind. Adoption, family, love, those things meant little to him. He had long accepted the fact that the orphanage was where he would grow up, or at least that was the story that he told himself. The truth? It was much darker. Since childhood, he had been told that a fire had claimed his parents' lives, and he had been alone and the only one who had been saved. But even though, through his hazy memories, he could recall that moment, Isagi knew it wasn't the whole story. He remembered the bitter sound of his parents' voices, arguing deep within the night. He then remembered opening his bedroom to only be met with the roaring flames in the hallways. He remembered their screams that haunted him still when he went to sleep. He had been clever enough to survive, forcing his small body through a window and into the waiting arms of a firefighter below. But the image of that night, it never left him. Running from the flames, running from helping his family, leaving them to die. It all plagued his mind like a disease. One evening, as he sat lost in thought, a voice pulled him back. "What is your name, boy?" Isagi turned. A man with long hair and a sharp black suit stood before him, his gaze piercing. "Yoichi Isagi." The man faintly smiled. "Well, Isagi, how long do you plan to waste your life within this place? I can offer you much more, far more, than this orphanage ever could." Isagi studied him, smirking. "If you're looking for a mindless brat, they're all outside on the swings." The man then stepped closer towards him, his presence almost suffocating. "No, I'm looking for someone who can change the world." That was the last day that Isagi was within the orphanage, as he was adopted by the man known only as Ray Dark. He was taken to a sprawling mansion where he was led to a room, all white, closed off, and just before the door closed, the man's voice echoed behind him once again. Win no matter the cost." Isagi, inside, found himself among dozens of other children his age. At first, he dismissed them, but when two of the kids broke out into a fight, one of them was left crying in defeat. Isagi grew irritated, walked over, and snapped, "Stop whining already," before helping the boy up. The boy then introduced himself as Saiki, and over time, these two grew close. Life within this mansion was unlike anything else Isagi had known. Days were filled with relentless lessons, advanced science, mathematics, history, martial arts, and even sports. Each instructor drilled it into them, shaping these children into something more than human, almost like children soldiers. When Isagi questioned the purpose, Saiki explained the truth. This place was meant to forge the ultimate prodigy, where only one would remain. So Isagi played the game. He advanced through every lesson, every challenge, outpacing others with unsettling ease. Slowly, the number of children dwindled. One day, the sports instructor gathered them for a game of football. Isagi knew nothing of the sport. Yet, when an opportunity appeared, he seized it. Snatching the ball, he tore down the field. Ignoring the calls for a pass, he faced the defenders head on. He felt a rush of anxiety. But then, within his mind, these defenders turned into flames. The flames that once consumed his home now reappeared. Instead of fleeing, he charged right into them. With a sharp spin and a final kick, he sent the ball flying into the net. When the instructor asked if he had ever played before, Isagi simply said no. Ray Dark soon heard of the incident, and from that day forward, football became the central focus of their training, alongside martial arts and combat drills. Eventually, it all came down to one last test, a duel in kendo. Saiki was the only other child remaining besides Isagi, and he faced them, trembling with the conflict in his mind. "We've been equals in everything," he said quietly, "and I still don't want to fight you." But once it began, it was clear that they were never equals. Isagi dismantled him with cold precision, strike after strike, until Saiki staggered, gasping for breath. The wooden blade pressed against his shoulder. It told him everything he needed to know. Isagi had always been ahead of him. To Saiki, their friendship had been too real. But to Isagi, it had only been another illusion, another test. As Isagi turned to leave with Rei, Saiki reached out desperately. "But aren't we friends?" Isagi looked at him. He didn't answer. He only turned his head and kept walking. In the next room, screens would light up, replaying his football performances. Ray Dark's voice filled the air. "You could disrupt the entire world of football, Isagi, but you'll need more training, much more. Think back to what you felt when facing other prodigies. That same thrill awaits you on an even grander stage." Isagi hesitated, torn between apathy and curiosity, but in the end he made his choice. Isagi would later be seen on a plane for the first time, headed to Argentina. As he then enters a video call with Ray Dark. "Yoichi Isagi, you serve me now. Realize that you have no purpose but to become great. There is a reason you've won against all odds. These next years will mold you into the ultimate all-around player, so do not disappoint me at all." At just 8 years old, Yoichi Isagi left behind the sterile white walls of Ray Dark's mansion. His training had shaped him into a prodigy unlike many others. But Ray Dark had bigger plans. He wanted Isagi forged in fire, the fire of the world's football giants. Argentina would be where fire meets passion. Isagi's first destination was Argentina, a land where football was more than a sport. It was blood, it was faith, and it was survival. Thrown into the barriers of an area, Isagi faced kids who had grown up with nothing but a ball at their feet and hunger in their eyes. They played on dirty fields and broken pavement, yet every touch of the ball carried the weight of raw passion. Here, it was like nothing other than he had seen before. Football wasn't cold here. It almost shined bright as the sun. Here, he learned the relentless will to fight for every inch. The players didn't care about his Japanese intellect or flawless footwork that he had had. They cared about grit, passion, and heart. Each time, their egos and many other things were shown in the matches that he played. His training, it was tough, something he wasn't used to. but it beats his old life. Every day he went through conflict, and match after match, they hacked at him, shoved him, forced him to prove that he could endure their world. Going there, he was stripped from everything. It was no longer that he had privilege. He was down back at the bottom and he lived it, living on the streets with other kids among him. He played with them every day, learning, growing, and eventually being submerged into this lifestyle. And by the time he left Argentina, his body was scarred and hardened, but his resolve, it burned brighter than ever. From the chaotic streets of Argentina, Isagi crossed the oceans to the United States, where football wasn't king here. Basketball and American football were. They stole the spotlight, but the academy he entered, well, it had honed athletes into machines. Training was specific, almost scientific, rigorous, and obsessed with physical dominance. Isagi faced towering defenders, players with unmatched strength and speed. They weren't artists with the ball, but their intensity and athleticism forced him to adapt time and time again. His mind was being shaped during these journeys. His thinking process began to change as he unlocked a new type of vision to see the field and play ahead of him. It was in the United States that Isagi developed his stamina, his explosiveness, and a sense for showmanship, learning how to captivate the crowd as he dominated each match he played. He realized that football wasn't only about winning, it was about commanding attention, showing everyone why you deserve to be in the spotlight through your skills and perseverance. But by 11, Isagi's journey took him to the heart of football itself, Europe. Here is where he trained across academies in England, Germany, and France, each sharpening his style in new ways. But the defining moment came as he entered Germany, where fate somehow placed him in front of a man called the world's greatest striker, Noel. Noel was everything the world had adored: ruthless, efficient, and godlike with the ball. Watching him play wasn't just witnessing greatness, it was witnessing inevitability. Isagi burned with questions, especially because he fell in love with the sport. Could I stand against him? No. Could I even surpass him? In a brief encounter, he exchanged words with Noah. The star regarded him coolly, recognizing the raw ambition within the boy's eyes. "You want the throne," Noah said. "Then take it. But remember, there's no room for equals at the top. There can only be one." Those words seared into Isagi's mind, fueling him long after he left Europe. Soon after this is when he went from Europe's polished stadiums to China. Here, the academies valued discipline, endurance, and relentless repetition. Perfection was only the minimum. The competition was fierce, but it wasn't long before Isagi began to dominate. The years of accumulated knowledge, Argentina's passion, America's athleticism, and Europe's precision all came together here. Here's when he got picked up by a local team. Match after match, he tore through defenses, humiliated rivals, and left the crowd stunned. China had seen nothing like this before. A young prodigy who demanded the attention of the world to be shined upon him. It's like every match, when he went out onto the field, every move he made let them know that he was here. A new age was beginning, and it was starting right here with him. He was no longer just a prodigy. It was almost as if he was a legend in the making. At 14, Isagi returned briefly to Japan. For the first time in 6 years, he stood once before Ray Dark, the man who had plucked him from the orphanage, now studied him with calculating satisfaction. "You've walked the world and tasted its fire. Now it's time to take a step onto the stage that will shape your destiny." Isagi was given a choice: remain in Japan and dominate domestically, or step into the crucible of European football once more, this time as a true professional. Without hesitation, he chose. At just 14 years old, Isagi Yoichi signed with Arsenal's youth division, one of the most prestigious clubs in England among giants. He was still just a boy, but one formed by 6 years. 6 years of battles across the globe. He wasn't just here to blend in. He wasn't there to learn humility or to be humbled. He was here to climb, to fight, to conquer, and one day reach Noel Noah and surpass him. Soon, we'd see him walking out to greet his team and coaches, who all believed that he didn't deserve to be here. But only the words of Ray Dark whispered within his mind once again. Win. Win no matter the cost. And that will be part 1 of this new series. I hope you all enjoyed it, as I know I have done this series in the past as a one-shot, but when I revisited it and watched it myself, I felt like I could have done so much more. This is one of those what-ifs where you can have so much creative liberty with it. You can explore so many different routes to lead up to where you want it to go. I'd like you guys to input things that you'd want to see during this what-if down in the comments. Moments you'd like to see, moves that you want Isagi to do, would you want him to lose and crush defenders? There's so many ways we can explore this series. So, I hope you all enjoyed. As part 2 won't take too long to come out, just give me a little bit of time. This is Zero, and I'll catch you all on the next one.